Talia was nothing more than a shadow in the home she lived in. Orphaned at 12 and taken in by her late mother's old friend, she was treated more like a servant than a family member. Her stepsister, Clarissa, was everything Talia wasn't: spoiled, beautiful, and cruel. When Clarissa was set to marry the wealthy and respected Ethan, a young man who had recently gone blind in an accident, everything seemed perfect. But then, out of nowhere, Clarissa ran off with another man just days before the wedding. In a desperate bid to save her family's reputation and avoid scandal, Clarissa's mother, Agnes, turned to the only available option, Talia. She was forced into the marriage like a pawn on a chessboard, dragged into a union with a man she had never spoken to. No one asked if she wanted it. No one cared. They dressed her in Clarissa's wedding gown and shoved her into the ceremony like a replacement doll. Ethan, unaware of the switch, stood tall despite his blindness. He said his vows with a voice full of hope, believing he was marrying the woman he had been courting. Talia, trembling in silence, couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth. She was now his wife, but not by choice and certainly not by love. Talia moved into Ethan's estate like a ghost, saying little and doing her best to avoid suspicion. Ethan was kind and polite, always asking about her day, her meals, her health. He tried to hold her hand. But Talia recoiled, not because she hated him but because she felt guilty. Every time he said her name, Clarissa, she felt the shame burn deeper into her bones. The staff noticed something strange. This Clarissa didn't act like the socialite they knew. She was gentle, soft-spoken, and far too humble. One of the maids, Maria, confronted her in private and asked, "Who are you really?" Talia broke down, sobbing, and begged her to keep the secret. Maria agreed, reluctantly, but warned that the truth would eventually explode. Meanwhile, Clarissa's betrayal remained a mystery to Ethan. His mother, a proud woman named Lady Helene, began to suspect something was off. She had always been skeptical of Clarissa but had accepted her for Ethan's sake. Now, watching Clarissa serve tea and kneel by Ethan's side like a loyal servant, she grew suspicious. The real Clarissa would never act this way. Ethan began to sense things weren't right. The woman he had spent months talking to before the wedding, arrogant, flirtatious, vain, was gone. In her place was someone softer, kinder, and heartbreakingly lonely. He would sit in the garden and ask her questions, trying to uncover the mystery. "Why do you sound different?" he asked one evening. Talia hesitated. "People change," she whispered, avoiding the question. But Ethan wasn't convinced. Though he couldn't see, his intuition grew sharper each day. He began to piece together fragments: a servant whispering a name, a sob in the night, a slip of the tongue. The woman by his side was not the one he had proposed to. Still, something strange was happening. He was falling in love. Not with the idea of Clarissa, but with this quiet, broken woman who tucked blankets over him and told stories when she thought he was asleep. Her voice wrapped around him like silk, healing wounds he didn't know he had. The truth lurked nearby, but for now Ethan held on to the warmth she brought. Clarissa returned without warning. Her face pale and her eyes cold, she stood at the estate's entrance with a sly smile, demanding to see her husband. Agnes wept and begged for forgiveness. She had not heard from Clarissa for weeks and assumed she was gone for good. Now everything was in jeopardy. Ethan heard the commotion and ordered Clarissa to be brought to him. "You left me," he said coldly. "And now you expect to walk back in like nothing happened?" Clarissa was taken aback. "You still love me," she smirked. "You married me after all?" Ethan stood slowly, his cane in hand. "I don't think I ever knew you," he replied. Talia hid in her room, heart racing. Everything was about to fall apart. Clarissa demanded her place back, both as wife and mistress of the house. Agnes supported her daughter. But Lady Helene stepped forward, fire in her eyes, and said, "Let the truth come out." The confrontation was brutal. Clarissa accused Talia of deceit, calling her a thief and an impostor. But it was Lady Helene who silenced everyone by revealing she had hired a private investigator weeks earlier. The truth had been uncovered. Clarissa had eloped, and Talia had been forced into the marriage by Agnes to save face. Ethan stood still, breathing heavily. "So, you're not Clarissa," he whispered, turning toward Talia. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want to lie," she choked out. "I was forced. But I swear I never meant to hurt you." The room went silent. Clarissa smirked. "So annul the marriage and be done with it." But to everyone's shock, Ethan spoke calmly. "No, I will not annul it." He turned toward the sound of Talia's breath. "Because for the first time in my life I was loved, not for my wealth or name, but for me. And I will not let that go." Clarissa, furious at being rejected, vowed revenge. She tried to poison the household with rumors, painting Talia as a schemer who manipulated a blind man. Whispers began to circle through the town, and soon Ethan's business associates started pulling away. Talia begged Ethan to let her go for his reputation's sake. But Ethan refused. "You think I need their approval to know your worth?" he said fiercely. "I trust what I feel. I trust you." Lady Helene stood by Talia's side too, shielding her like a lioness protecting her cub. The household, once divided, now found unity behind Ethan and Talia. Still, Clarissa wasn't done. One night, she snuck into Ethan's room and whispered lies into his ears as he slept. But Maria, the maid, caught her in the act and exposed her plan. Clarissa was thrown out of the estate, and this time, even Agnes didn't defend her. Months passed. Talia and Ethan grew closer, their love now open and tender. One day, Lady Helene brought news of a renowned eye specialist in town. There was a risky surgery that could possibly restore Ethan's vision. At first he refused. He feared that once he saw her, the magic might break. But Talia encouraged him. "You should see the world again. Even if it means you won't love me anymore," she said, her voice trembling. Ethan took her hand. "I don't need eyes to see your soul. But if I can look into your eyes and tell you I love you, then it's worth every risk." He underwent the surgery. Talia waited outside the hospital, heart pounding. Days later, when the bandages were removed, Ethan blinked into the sunlight, and the first thing he saw was her. Not Clarissa. Not wealth. But the woman who had stood by him through blindness and betrayal. He smiled. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined." One day, while cleaning the attic, Talia stumbled upon a wooden box carved with initials. Inside were letters, old, worn, and filled with Ethan's childhood memories. Among them was a sealed envelope addressed to "My future wife." Talia gave it to Ethan, who hadn't known it existed. He opened it and read the letter aloud. It was from his younger self, filled with dreams of a woman who would love him for his heart, not his money. "She won't be perfect," it read, "but she'll be real. She'll see me even if I can't see her." Talia burst into tears. It was as if destiny had written their story long before they met. The letter was placed in a frame and hung in their bedroom as a reminder of fate's strange kindness, even when it starts with lies. Clarissa was gone, but her poison lingered. An anonymous letter reached one of Ethan's business rivals, claiming Talia had plotted the marriage from the beginning. The rival leaked it to the press, and soon headlines were blazing with rumors of Talia seducing a blind millionaire for fortune. Talia couldn't walk through the streets without stares and whispers. Ethan stood beside her, publicly and privately, issuing statements and denouncing the lies. But in private, Talia was unraveling. "What if this never ends?" she whispered one night. "What if people never see me as anything but a fraud?" Ethan cupped her face gently. "Let them look. Let them whisper. You are my truth. And the people who matter will know it too." Still, something broke in her that night. She stopped smiling so freely. She stopped dancing barefoot in the garden. The weight of the world, the lies, the shame, the twisted beginnings, settled on her shoulders like iron. And Ethan, who once could not see her, began to see too much pain in her eyes. Lady Helene, suspecting that Clarissa was behind the smear campaign, hired a man to follow the trail. What he found was even more shocking. Clarissa had not just returned to ruin Talia, she had partnered with a man claiming to be Ethan's older half-brother, presumed dead years ago. The man, Nicholas, had come back to reclaim what he said was his father's estate, the fortune, and the name. With Clarissa whispering in his ear, he filed a claim to contest Ethan's inheritance, accusing Talia of using marriage as a power move. Suddenly, the estate was under legal attack. Ethan, caught off guard, realized this was never about Talia. It was about greed. About legacy. And Clarissa was still pulling the strings behind the curtain. "She doesn't want me," Ethan said. "She wants to destroy anything that gave me peace after she left." Talia, silent, knew they had a new war ahead. The legal battle was long and vicious. Nicholas, charming and calculating, painted a picture of Ethan as weak and Talia as manipulative. Clarissa played the victim, crying on cue, saying she had been replaced and slandered. The media loved it. The courtroom was packed every day with cameras and reporters. Talia was dragged into the spotlight against her will. Her past was picked apart. Every job she'd had, every school she'd attended, her orphan status used against her as a tool of pity and suspicion. But it was Ethan's testimony that changed everything. "I was blind when I married her," he said calmly, "but I see more clearly now than ever. She's not a gold digger. She's the reason I didn't give up after the accident." The judge, moved by Ethan's words and presented with undeniable proof of Nicholas's fraud, ruled in Ethan's favor. Nicholas was stripped of his claim. Clarissa disappeared again, this time truly disgraced. And Talia? She stood on the steps of the courthouse with Ethan, the sun shining on her tear-streaked face as he held her hand for the world to see. But just when peace returned, tragedy struck. One night, the estate went up in flames. Talia awoke to smoke and screams. Ethan grabbed her hand, guiding her through the choking darkness. They barely escaped, coughing and covered in soot. The estate, everything, was reduced to ashes. Investigators said it was arson. And while they had no proof, Ethan and Talia knew in their bones who was behind it. Clarissa. She may not have won in court, but she had set the world they built ablaze. For days, Talia walked through the ruins, picking up singed photographs and charred memories. But something changed in the fire's wake. They had nothing now, no riches, no estate, no power. And yet Ethan smiled more. He took her hand and said, This is freedom. We can start over. Build from our roots, not someone else's ashes. Talia looked around the rubble, nodded and whispered, Let's begin again. With nothing but a small insurance payout, Ethan and Talia moved into a modest countryside home. He took a job consulting for a small firm, while Talia began painting, something she hadn't done since childhood. She sold a few pieces to a local shop and slowly her name spread. They cooked their own meals, laughed over cheap wine, and spent nights reading by candlelight. The world, once full of cameras and courtrooms, now narrowed into something simpler. Real. Intimate. Their love, once born from chaos, now bloomed in silence. One evening Ethan gave her a canvas and said, Paint what this life feels like. She painted two hands holding each other in the rain. When it sold for a generous sum, Ethan smiled and said, We may have lost everything, but we gained ourselves. A year later, a mysterious letter arrived. It was handwritten, no return address, and addressed to Mrs. Talia Gray. Inside was a single sentence, You think it's over, but secrets always find their way home. Talia froze. Her heart pounded as she showed it to Ethan. He read it twice, then burned it in the fireplace. It's someone trying to scare us, he said, but even he looked uneasy. Days later, they noticed someone watching from across the street. A tall man, always in a black coat, never speaking. Talia began locking the doors every hour. Then their dog went missing. Talia found its collar buried in the garden. The police searched but found nothing. It's Clarissa, she whispered. She's not done. Ethan shook his head. If she wants to come, let her. This time we'll be ready. One stormy night, Talia heard a knock on the door. She opened it slowly, and found Clarissa, soaked in rain, holding a small child. Her face was pale, eyes sunken. Help me, she whispered, collapsing in Talia's arms. The child, thin and shivering, looked up with the same piercing blue eyes as Ethan. Talia's world spun. Clarissa woke up in their guest room the next morning and whispered the truth. The child was Ethan's. I was pregnant when I left. I didn't know until after I ran, she said. I used him. I don't want him now. But I can't take care of him anymore. He's your problem. Ethan was stunned. His son. His son. He didn't know whether to believe it. But a DNA test confirmed it. And suddenly, their quiet life exploded again, with the cries of a boy who had his father's eyes and his mother's storm. Talia didn't know how to feel. She was raising her stepsister's child. Ethan was gentle and loving with the boy, named Leo, but cautious. Clarissa vanished again, leaving only a note. Don't come looking for me. Talia tried not to resent the child, but it was hard. One day, Leo walked into her studio and said, You smell like sunshine. She laughed for the first time in weeks. Slowly a bond formed. She taught him how to paint. He called her Mama by mistake once, and then did it again on purpose. Ethan watched as the two most important people in his life, one from blood, one from fate, found peace in each other. He's yours more than hers, Ethan told her one night, because you choose him. And love like that, it's stronger than anything born from hate. Years passed. Leo grew and the family healed. But one day Clarissa returned, this time as a shadow of her former self. Sick, gaunt, dying. She had come to say goodbye. She asked to see Leo. Talia didn't want to allow it, but Leo deserved answers. Clarissa sat with her son and whispered apologies. She gave him a necklace and said, I was a terrible mother. But maybe you'll grow up to be better than all of us. She died 2 days later, alone in the town hospice. Talia arranged the funeral, unmarked and quiet. Ethan held Talia close that night. You are the best thing that ever happened to this family, he said. And this time there are no lies between us. Talia nodded, feeling peace settle in her heart for the first time since the day she was forced into a wedding that was never meant to be. Years later, Leo found the old wedding photo. Ethan, blind, standing next to a woman he thought was someone else. "You didn't want to marry each other?" he asked. Talia smiled. "No, we didn't. But sometimes the wrong beginning leads to the right forever." Ethan kissed her hand. "You saved my life," he said. "Not with your eyes, but with your soul." Talia looked out the window where the sun was setting. "It was never about how it started," she whispered. "It's about how we kept choosing each other, even when everything told us not to." And in that small, quiet house filled with love, laughter, and second chances, the orphan girl who was once forced into marriage finally wrote her own ending, with paint, with love, and with a promise that no matter what storms came next, they would face them together.